Hi one and all, it's Nikki and welcome back to yet another author questions video. We are into the final stretch now. We've got 3 videos to go, including this one, before we finish them all off. So without further ado, let us crack on, shall we? Question 61. What are your goals for next year? Well, this is going to come out in June, and June is actually the end of the financial year for us here in Australia. So perhaps I'll talk to you as if it's what my plans are for the next financial year. Now I'm filming this quite a bit in advance, so it may be I'll add a few notes at the bottom if some other stuff's come up that I don't know about at this particular time. But as usual, I'm just going to be trying to carry on with my writing. What I might do is add a little addendum of some sort to this video, or perhaps do in June I usually do my writer update video, so that will probably be coming out around the time I'm posting this video. So what I may do is, it might be easier rather than try and make up stuff that I don't know about that's, you know, several months ahead for me at the moment. I will just direct you to that video in the spiel about this one, so you can hear current update on all my writing projects. I think that'll work best. Let's do that. Question 62. Who is your favourite character that you created? That's an easy one. It would be Loki in the Ragnarok Chronicles. Now, I mean, obviously in some ways I didn't create Loki. He already exists as a mythological figure, but my version of Loki, I guess we could say, is still, after all these years, I mean, that book, I wrote that book in 2014, it came out in 2015. He is still my favourite character I've ever written. I had a really personal connection to him when I was writing that book. It was a huge influence on me writing that story, and it sticks with me even now. And I just love him. He's so wonderful and witty and funny and sexy, and yet completely damaged. And the book is almost as much about him finding out who he wants to be and what he wants to do with his life and the sort of person he wants to be, as it is about the bigger picture of what's going on with Ragnarok and Cassandra's visions and things. So he's my absolute favourite and I love him. Question 63. When did you start writing fiction and what did you write? As a child I used to pen stories, definitely. I always wanted to be a writer. When I was in my mid-teens I wrote my first novel. It was a fictional version of Robespierre, Robespierre's life, particularly focusing on his Paris years, but including bits from his childhood and things and his younger days as a lawyer in Arras. And it's funny, that story is I've still got a copy of it. I mean, the prose is appalling, you could never submit it anywhere, but the story itself and the idea of it I really like still, and I keep saying that I will eventually go back and rework it. It's just one of those jobs that, you know, a new idea comes into my head and I end up writing that first, but maybe that should be one of my resolutions for the next year ahead, is to really think about doing something with that story. After that I moved into fan fiction a bit in my late teens, early 20s, and then it was after I came here to Australia that I came here in 2007, it was 2011 when I first started writing and publishing original fiction, starting with sort of paranormal stories and moving on from there. Question 64. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? Well, obviously we've already mentioned a writer, and that is one of the things that I did want to do from a very young age. It would often come up because I loved books so much, and I would often say I want to write one of these myself one day, you know, have my own name on a cover of a book. Other things I wanted to do though, I really wanted to be in theatre for quite a long time. I even went so far as auditioning at some drama schools when I left high school, and I wasn't successful. I mean, most of the courses I was going for were musical theatre, and I didn't have a dance background, and on the occasions where I got feedback I was told I did, you know, perfectly fine. They were happy with my vocal performances and my acting, but the dance let me down because I just didn't have the, you know, solid years of dance experience that all the other people that were there auditioning had. So that was the problem, and at that point I realised it was never going to happen. I wanted to be in musicals. It was clearly not going to be. It's a very hard life. It was at that point I decided to be a translator, and I did my initial BA, and then I started to I went on and did a postgrad diploma in translation. But after that I ended up travelling, and that's when I came to Australia. And over here my European languages are not quite so useful as they were in England. So it was at that point that I changed course and became an editor and writer. So yeah, I've had a few over the years, but perhaps, apart from the theatre, perhaps nothing too extreme. Like I never wanted to be an astronaut or a cowboy or, you know, any of those sort of things. So pretty standard ones, I guess. Question 65. What would you say to someone to convince them to read the genre you write in? That's a hard question for me because I write across the genres so much. It's pretty easier if I was only a fantasy writer or something, but I'd say maybe don't try and sell it on the genre. You know, if they're not a fantasy reader, it's no use trying to persuade someone to read a fantasy book unless there's something in the book that you think is going to appeal to them that's not to do with the classic genre staples, if you like, of fantasy. So perhaps, you know, it's a story about a young boy grieving the loss of his father, and you think that would have relevance to your friend. It's something that that person might enjoy. Then I'd try and sell it on that point, and you say, you know, it's a fantasy story, however the major theme of the book is this. So how's that? I don't know, it's a strange question. Question 66. Have you ever wanted to quit writing? Maybe once or twice. I mean, it's mainly been around publisher closures. When you've got your work with a publisher, suddenly that publisher goes under. In some cases you don't get paid the money you're owed. Some cases you have difficulty getting your rights back and things like that. And all that drama and all that hassle and the fact that you're having to start from scratch. I mean, that's got to me a few times. I mean, I try and avoid it as much as possible now by spreading my work out among different publishers. So that way, if one closes, I've still got works available with others. Whereas the first time it happened to me, or the first 2 times it happened to me, that publisher closing meant none of my works were available, just suddenly, after all the effort I put into promoting them. And so those things sometimes get me down. And at that point as well, especially when you don't get your money from a publisher that closes, you're thinking, you know, I'm putting so many hours and hours that authors spend writing a book, getting it ready for submission, promoting the book. You know, all that time, what am I getting back for it? And should I be spending my time on other things where I'm going to get more return? So I have had that thought a few times, but at the end of the day, I always come back to the fact that I love writing and I have all these story ideas in my head, and it would be terrible if I didn't have the opportunity to share them. Even if only 10 people read the book, you know, at least you've got that story out there, and hopefully those 10 people will enjoy it and get some benefit from it. And I think that's what keeps me going with it and makes me get over these little slumps that I have from time to time. So I think that's the end of today's questions, isn't it? We're number 66. So I will be back again next month when we will be doing 67 to 72. So I will close, but I'll see you all again then. Bye for now, guys.